morning, my friends. Coffee, 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 coffee. Not product placement because I don't sell anything. Well, folks, today we will start with an Aurora story. This one is from episode or part 2 of The Runner, and I shall read. Air power. It may be time for a stronger prescription. Or maybe it's just early morning eyes. As with most plastic model kit companies, aircraft played an important part in the Aurora lineup. Although Aurora's aeronautical efforts were usually inferior in accuracy and quality to those of other kit companies, Aurora covered many subjects that the other manufacturers ignored. Canceled aircraft kit projects appear throughout Aurora history. A Sikorsky H-19 was in development before Aurora acquired the molds for the same subject from Helicopters for Industry. And by the way, that Piasecki Hup that I have that I was talking about is part of that Helicopters for Industry series, and it included an H-19. I'll see if I can find a picture of the Helicopters for Industry series and put it up there where it won't cover my face, which I know was made for radio, but oh well. So back to the story. Let us see. Grumman Avenger and a 148 scale F4U Corsair were planned. Additions to the World War II range and decals for the Corsair were actually printed. Other cancellations from the late 50s and early 60s were an F-84F in Thunderbird markings and a history of aviation made up of 24 various scale aircraft miniatures on a common base. That'd have been kind of cool, like Monogram's thing with all the missiles on it. Screw together. Aurora's series of large-size, screw-together aircraft kits were the type of item that customers either fall in love with or totally hated. The kits were, of course, static conversions of gas-powered flying models from the late 50s. The oft-modeled Spitfire and ME-109, or for those who are particular, BF-109, but he wrote ME-109, so don't want to hear it. Not gonna respond to it. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Don't care. Don't care. Willie says BF and ME are Chevrolet and Chevy, and so the issue is decided as far as I am concerned. Because Captain Tangent here can pick up any stray thought and run with it. Okay, let's see. So the Spit and the 109 were canceled Aurora flying models, but the ME-109 died twice because the unused pattern for the flying model was altered into screwdriver configuration, and then it was canceled again. Okay. Now, I touched on this once before, but since it's the next thing in line, I'm going to go ahead and go over the whole Biz Jet disaster. In 1969, Aurora released 4 civil aircraft in 1/72nd scale, a Skymaster and Aztec, a Piper Cherokee at 70 cents each, and the Jet Commander at $1. And this selection of kits must have struck many modelers and retailers as being odd in several respects. It was definitely unusual for a kit manufacturer to release a series of 4 aircraft made up of 3 at one price point and a 4th at a different price point. And there was inconsistency in the box tops that featured photos of the actual aircraft and the latest color schemes, while decals and markings provided that were a few years old were different. Why the Jet Commander instead of the Lear? Well, the original series was to include the Learjet and a Cessna Skylane. That's a 182. That would have made the Series 6 kits 4 at 70 cents and 2 at $1. A much more logical grouping in terms of retail assortments. These civil planes were the pet projects of one of Aurora's earliest kit project directors. He managed to get the 6 planes up to the final pattern stage. However, top management was not completely taken with the idea, and it stalled for years. Finally, the project was given the tooling go-ahead under the condition that it be done as cheaply as possible. This involved the use of a mold making shop in Portugal that had little or no experience with plastic kits. Tooling began with the Lear and the Skylane, and the first test shots proved that Aurora had made a terrible mistake. The molded parts were crude to the point of worthlessness, and it was evident that no amount of additional work could bring the molds up to an acceptable level. The patterns for the 4 remaining planes were returned to the United States for proper tooling. To save some cost, photos supplied by the aircraft manufacturers were used for the box art, but decal drawings prepared years earlier were not updated. So time had caused a mismatch between the image used and the decals that had already been printed. And even as a kid, I remember wondering about that. They had that beautiful gold Cherokee on the cover, which one of you guys sent me a picture of a real one that was in that paint scheme. That's still my favorite Cherokee paint scheme. Now, largely, I love the gold on white, but also nostalgia. Let's see. The SST. Many kit companies had high hopes for America's supersonic transport and actually produced kits of the non-existent aircraft. Aurora almost did the same with the Boeing 2707 in both its swing wing and later fixed wing configurations. The Anglo-French Concorde was considered as an Aurora kit subject, but never got beyond the talk stage. When Aurora asked BAC and Sud Aviation for reference material to design the kit, the aircraft manufacturer told the kit company that they would need a license to produce a miniature Concorde and would have to pay royalties. And so much for the Aurora Concorde. I wonder if any of the other companies did pay the Concorde kits, did actually pay royalties to Concorde. They may have, but I wouldn't be shocked if they didn't. And so we'll stop there with the Aurora stories and pick up next time with research aircraft. Also, Jerry V sent me took the time to write a very long email. And you're right, Jerry. Maybe it's an American thing. We tend to use the word glue interchangeably, but you're correct that what we're really using on plastic are solvents because they melt the plastic and rebond it. And I know anytime you use it on a painted surface, you're asking for disaster, and which with the GTO I did because I just need to get the corner of the hood down, and I figured, well, just a little dab in there and a clamp and everything will be fine. And had I kept my big fat paint-stained finger off the hood, we would have been just fine. Everything would have worked out fine. But no, somebody didn't look and go, hey, I've just been painting models all day. Maybe I should change gloves. And I saw that God bless him, he sent me some diagrams and everything with clamps and pressure points. I'm like, I know, those clamps I use are way too big and way too strong for what I'm doing, which creates as many problems as it solves. I should be using rubber bands or tape on these small ones, but to be honest, you get busy and you get a little lazy and you try to take a shortcut, and it usually blows up in your face. And he brings up an interesting point because he's right about something that a lot of the alignment issues I have when I set these things up and then put the clamp on, everything looks fine. But especially for like a 1/72nd scale model, a lot of times the clamps are just, if you can find like a tail, like the fin where you just squeeze the two flat pieces together, no problem. When you get up around the fuselage, it's real easy for those clamps, even if you go completely around it and don't use the flat parts, but just use the body of the clamp to hold it where there's a lot less pressure. But sometimes it's just plastic, and don't forget it gets soft under that solvent. So the clamp can put just enough pressure that it'll do that. And he said it made him cringe to watch me do that. I'm like, yeah, that's just laziness on my part. Trying to take a shortcut. I actually have a bag of rubber bands, but the bloody things break so freaking easy. That's what I get for buying the 30-cent rubber bands instead of the $2 rubber bands. Sometimes to me a tape does a good job, but that's the nice thing about tape is you can hold something together without really putting any pressure on it like rubber bands or clamps do. But rubber bands usually work pretty well. So I guess you guys hopefully saw I got the Nito video up, and it never fails. You get done and you find, oh, I'm going to have to put that tidbit in there. There's something I'd taken out of the text that I forgot to put in. I did put it in the outro and one very quick mention in there in writing, but Nitto, even though they only made like 32 aircraft, most of them were airliners. That was really their forte. And they made 4 different versions, 4 different scales of the Concorde, which is kind of interesting that, hey, let's make a Concorde. Well, 2 years later, let's make the Concorde in another scale. And I have no idea what prompted that, but anyway, a lot of you guys have built Nitto airliners, and there were a lot of comments on that you really thought, especially their DC-8 is one of their better kits, and you really liked it. And even Mike Machat, when we had our chat last time, he had it, but we just never got, we got sidetracked, never got around to talking to it. It had this big, I think 1:100 scale Aurora DC-8 that was apparently a really nice kit. And a lot of you guys said that Intex got a lot of Nitto's kits, and I believe they did, and I forgot to mention that. So a lot of these kits, like these Nitto and kits, and even the Nichimoku, which I'm gonna hopefully do next, a lot of these kits are still around. You can get a lot of the Nitto kits through Wave and then Wave Dash Con, or I put it up on, I forget the website, but it's Wave. It's on the video, and of course Fujimi, and I don't know how many of them, but I'm sure a lot of that stuff. Of course, the molds have to be cleaned up. I was talking with Pete Vetri, and one of the things he pointed out is that a lot of these molds have just been used so much that they've kind of worn out. Apparently, that happened with Novo. That Swordfish has gone together probably as well as an Airfix kit. So I'm not really, or excuse me, well, they're old Frog molds. As well as a Frog kit, but it's more. It was really, there was some flash on it and stuff, but overall, you can see some bigger seams and stuff, but nothing catastrophic. And then it was pointed out that a lot of the molds though kept getting used without maintenance, and then later Novo kits were getting really a lot of flash, and they were getting pretty unworkable. And I'm not defending not doing maintenance on the molds, but I would imagine a lot of these companies are operating on wafer thin margins, and it's just all they can do. So they're like, look, we haven't got the money to cut new molds, and you can't really add steel, and there's a very special technique to try and maintain the things. And shame on them for not maintaining them if that was the problem. But if they're just wearing out, they're just wearing out. There's really not a whole lot you can do. So I imagine they just ran them until they, runs them till they can't runs them no more. And or as Burt Gummer was saying, if you remember the movie Tremors, I'm doing what I can with what I got. And I don't think I'm going to do another viewer builds video. If you keep sending pictures, I'll keep them in a library in case at some point I can get around to doing a 5th one. But I think that's going to be the last one because I only have a few weeks left before I have to go back to work. Yeah. And so I'm going to try and focus on getting these models done. I got a ton of work to do on that Stagecoach, which is starting like a Stagecoach a little bit now. And not sure what I'm going to do about the decals on it, but we'll see. We'll tackle it as it happens. And yeah, didn't even get out to the shed yesterday because you'd be surprised how much time it takes to video edit one of those things together, even once you got the material together. You think, oh, this will take half an hour to get out together, find the music, you crank it on it. Next thing you know, what do you mean 4 hours went by? Where did the day go? But so wife and I have some errands to run today, and then hopefully get some building done. So want to finish off the A5 and hopefully the Kate and make some progress, start working on the chassis on the undercarriage of the Stagecoach. And one thing I've learned about a kit that's that complex is, man, little chunks, sign something for the day, get that done, move over to something else, because you start trying to do a lot on that thing at one time. With all those little parts and this, a lot of, it's just, you're kind of, after a while, you're just going, whoa. And last thing, obviously, you want to do when you're building a model is lose focus. So that's it. We will see you guys hopefully this evening, and you guys have a great day. Build on.